the Oh, there you go. So for the first part of this event, what we're going to be doing is going over some of the common misconceptions about the EECS program as submitted by current EECS students. And basically what the form consists of is a bunch of myths that they might have heard as incoming students. And we'll be going over whether these are true or whether we found these true or not personally. So to start off, the first one is that EECS is hard. So Stephen will be our responder. So Stephen, give it a go.
So a lot of people, they have this impression of the EECS program that it's difficult, but that's actually not true. And it's not true in the way that, yeah, sometimes like the content might get technical and challenging, but there are a lot of resources here to help you succeed. So while the content is technical and that's normal, it's totally not true that it's just hard. Right? There are ways to, like, there are a lot of resources that help you guide you through the content.
Yeah, nice. So the second one is also one that I heard personally before coming to Berkeley. And it's one that, it kind of seems kind of like very off-putting, but the next confession is people will throw you under the bus to get ahead or lead you in the wrong direction for homework assignments and things like that.
Well, to respond to this myth, like before I came to Berkeley, I heard a lot of scary stories as well, and also I read a lot of stuff on some forums that I'm not gonna name. But personally, I've never experienced that either. Right? So a lot of friends that I met at Berkeley in my classes or in other societies like HKN, they're super supportive, and we sometimes we help each other in homework parties, and like we text each other to ask about questions related to homework projects and stuff. So it's definitely not true that people try to sabotage each other.
So the next one is that Berkeley CS is super competitive, that classes are curved, so everyone's pitted against each other for their grade, and that students and professors are cutthroat since you have to outperform everyone else to get a good grade. And it's also hard to make like genuine friends in CS because of this, and EECS in general.
Well, to respond to this, I would say that like professors, they really have no interest in like pitting students against each other, right? Their focus is to teach you the material in CS, right? While like some classes are curved, that's true. But if you go to office hours, if you really try your best to learn the material, getting like a good grade is definitely not a problem, right? And you should not like personally, I'm never discouraged by like the competition. It's not as hard, it's not as intense as the impression is, like the competition, right? And you don't have to outperform everyone to get a good grade. That's not true. A good amount of people get A's in classes. 5%.
On to the next one. So this one's kind of, I don't know. It's CS people are antisocial. What do you think about this, Stephen?
CS people antisocial is definitely not true, because we HKN, we're honor society, right? We're EECS honor society, and I met so many like funny people, like amazing memories at HKN. So that's definitely not true. Like we play games, we do hangouts, we like go to the beach, we play poker, something like that. So it's definitely not true. I mean, you can't study 24 hours a day, right? You need to socialize. So that's not true.
I will add a little bit to this one too, because I feel like this is also kind of what I got coming in, and I didn't really know what to expect, if I'd be able to find a group of my own or whatever. But once I did join HCAN and I joined the Serve Committee, which is the one hosting this event, I feel like I really did find like a second family within the EECS community, and I'm like forever thankful for that. And we're able to like poke a lot of fun at each other, like mess around during meetings. We go overtime, just like making fun of each other basically, but it's definitely an experience that like I don't regret having. So yeah. On to the next one. So this one, okay, so it says you need lots of prior experience in coding and CS to succeed at Berkeley, and that nearly everyone has taken AP computer science or coded their own apps and websites before coming to Berkeley. You would better know X programming language or Y technology or Z technical skill, or you're going to be screwed when you come here?
Okay, this is definitely 100% false. Why? Because first of all, like the CS classes, they don't expect you to have any prior knowledge. Like that's the theory side. But also, me personally, I'm a transfer, and I didn't know anything about programming until maybe sophomore, at the junior like community college that I was attending. And after I transfer, I'm doing completely okay, right? So don't be pressured if you don't have any prior experience. I didn't take any AP computer science class back in high school. I didn't even know what Java or C++ or Python is back in high school, right? So that's definitely not true, right? Berkeley, the program is designed in a way that it has all the tools necessary for you to succeed, right? So you don't need to have any prior experience.
I will also say that the focus of CS at Berkeley is not so much to teach programming languages, but to teach broader CS concepts that aren't specific to any one language. So more like problem solving and looking at different ways to solve different problems. And I feel like that's the most useful skill of all, and that's what will help you succeed in these. The next one is that someone super smart from my high school went to Berkeley, and I heard they're struggling there because it's so difficult. If that super smart person is struggling, that means there's no way I'm good enough for Berkeley.
Okay, to respond to this one, I'm gonna say that a lot of people, they have a really bad image on the term struggling. But in fact, it's okay to struggle. Like it's a normal thing to struggle, right? If you only stay within your comfort zone, you're not gonna like learn anything. Like you're not gonna learn a lot of stuff. So Berkeley gives you an environment where even if you struggle, eventually you can get help, you can succeed, right? It doesn't mean that you are gonna be put in the hands of another person, right? It's not gonna not it's not you're not gonna live inside a greenhouse and have everything taken care of by other people. You're gonna struggle a little bit, but that's part of the learning process as well, right? So it's a good part of struggling, right? It's normal to struggle, right? That's what I'm gonna say.
The next one's a little bit funny. It says EEC students don't have any social skills. They spend all their time studying. They can't get a date, and they don't shower.
That is definitely not true, like to the shower thing. But it's a funny meme. You know, people say that EEC people don't shower, but that's definitely not true. Like I know I personally shower every day, and a lot of my friends shower, right? And also, it's not true that EEC people have no social skill, right? Like in terms of career wise, to get a programming or software engineering job, you don't only code, right? You have to there are some behavior interviews and stuff. So you definitely have to socialize and you have to make connections like career fairs. So it's definitely not true that people have no social skill. Right? Well, you spend an amount of your time studying, but that's part of learning, right? So you need to spend some time studying. You cannot avoid that.
Right, right. The next one is that seriously, I heard that EECS is so competitive that when students work right next to each other, they adjust the brightness of their monitors so that other students around them won't be able to read off their screen, even at the modest price of ruining their eyesight.
Oh my god. This myth is kind of funny actually, but I don't think people would do that. Like EECS is competitive in a way that I feel like maybe like getting into the major is competitive, like getting into the school. But after getting into school, people within the major actually I feel like they're quite supportive of each other, right? So maybe I mean some people might do that. They might adjust the brightness of the monitors, but that's not what the majority of people would do. People are quite supportive.
Yeah, I've worked next to plenty of students, and I've never seen them lower their monitor brightness, and I've never done it personally, so that's the most that I can attest to it. Um, okay, so the next one, Berkeley is a super unsafe hippie city. This one isn't necessarily about EEC specifically, but about the city in general.
So I'm not sure about hippie, but Berkeley, like it depends on which part of Berkeley. So downtown Berkeley is a little more dangerous. North Berkeley is better. South side is fine, I feel like, because there's more students living there. But in general, if you don't go out late at night and and also this probably won't be a problem because you would be spending most of your time in classrooms or labs. So like the safety of Berkeley wouldn't be too big of a problem. Yeah, well, exactly, as Ryan mentioned in the chat, walk around with friends, yeah, or stay at the lab for most of the time.
I think one thing that, one tip that I have is to bring a study buddy too if you go to a library. That's one thing that I did a lot when I was on campus, especially like my first semesters. This one I think is a little more like specific to on-campus life, I guess. So CS clubs are elitist, even harder to get into Berkeley itself as a college.
For this myth, I feel like to some extent, like to some clubs, it is true. Like some clubs have different interview processes. Like for example, one club that I applied to, they have 3 rounds of interviews, and that's kind of a lot. But not all clubs are like that. For example, HKN isn't like that, right? And I mean, Berkeley is a big school, so they have lots of clubs. So you have a big sample size of all kinds of clubs there is. So some of them might be elitist, but most of them, I feel like from personal experience, they aren't elitist as much. At least like the image that they try to present isn't elitist, but the other people have add on to that.
I think the most important thing is to try to join clubs that you think that fit your interest and also are the community that you're actually searching for. I think the biggest mistake that I think I personally made when looking for clubs to join was kind of more focusing on labels than the actual mission statement. And I feel like that, if anything, should be the highest priority especially when you first come here. But like overall, I'm like extremely happy where I am. Like I've joined a bunch of like computer science mentors clubs, like pro bono, like for social good, and I feel like I'm very happy where I'm at, and I feel like everyone has the opportunity to be at that place, especially when you're a part of these. So I think that's it for questions for Stephen. I have one more question for Shalin. Let's see. Thank you, Stephen, for your responses. So let's see. So Shalin, computer science and tech have poor track records when it comes to racial and gender equity. Women and minorities form a small percentage of people studying or working in tech, and a hostile elitist tech bro culture pervades the industry. Berkeley EECS is no different.
Yeah, so I've heard this a lot, not just with Berkeley, but for STEM in general. I think it's an unfortunate reality we have that in STEM, a lot of the time, women and minority individuals are kind of pushed away from, pursuing the same goals that their counterparts in majority students might be pursuing. So I think in terms of Berkeley, though, almost in all of my classes, except for maybe 1 or 2, there is an fairly even split of minority individuals, women, and men. And I think even if we look at the panel here today, we have a fairly even split. And so I think we're not where we should be. I think that's the reality. I'm not going to pretend that we're perfect, that we have an even 50-50 split of men and women, that we have minority individuals all throughout EECS, because it's simply not true. But we are getting there. And this class, I think, is one of the class of 2025, or transferred the class of 2023, is one of the most diverse classes of EECS coming to Berkeley. And so I think that it really shows that we're taking the steps to get somewhere, but we're not there yet. And so, oh, sorry, the mist on my head is my humidifier. I apologize for that. But yeah, so we're not there yet. I think the most important thing to know is if you are specifically a woman, or if you are coming from a minority background, Berkeley is a wonderful place for you to be, especially Berkeley EECS, because there are so many different communities here that are incredibly comforting and incredibly accepting of your identity. And I think that's one of the best things about Berkeley. Really, whoever you are, whatever your background is, there's always going to be a group of people who are there for you. And that's why I think that's one of the things Berkeley is different from all other schools, because you can truly, truly feel included no matter who you are. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say.
Thank you so much, Sean, for that response. That concludes our Mythbusters portion of the event. And now I will pass it on to Sean and Ambita for the student panel. Thank you.
Thanks, Nasser. So today we have a few people with us from different backgrounds. So we have me and Shalon will be running the panel today, and our panelists today, who will be starring in today's show, are Ashley Zhang, Alex Christopherson, Ashwin, Rohan, and Ryan and Catherine. And if you would all like to take a minute to introduce yourselves really fast, you can. Sorry, I'm trying to pin everyone, so this is taking a little bit of time, but.
Yeah, I can go first. Hi everyone, my name is Ashley. I'm currently a third-year EECS major, and I'm also involved with HKN as an officer, and I also did the Preengineering program in the summer before I came to Berkeley. So if you have any questions about that, you can ask me too. I'm an East Bay local. I used to commute to campus, and I also play a very fun sport called Jugger, where you have foam swords.
I can go next. My name is Ryan. I'm a sophomore EECS major. I'm from Pasadena, California, which if you don't know, it's just outside LA. And yeah, I'm interested in like ML, scientific computing, but I also have a passion for board games. So if you have any questions about that, also let me know.
Alex, next.
Yeah, hi, I'm Alex. I'm a third-year EECS major. I'm from right next to Riverside, California. I'm really into space. I'm part of one of Berkeley's premier space clubs, STAC, but I'm also really into computer vision research, so I do that as well.
Catherine.
Hello, I'm Catherine. I am a sophomore EECS major. I'm from San Jose in South Bay. Some things I'm really interested in is just like teaching and giving back to the community. So some other organizations I'm a part of include AW, which is Association of Women in NCS, and Society of Women Engineers.
Rohan.
Hi, I'm Rohan. I'm a sophomore EECS major. I'm from Los Gatos, which is in the South Bay in California. And I am involved in HKN as an officer on the decal committee, which runs Going Down the EECS stack, which is an introductory class that teaches you all about different fields in EECS. And I've also really liked EECS 16A, which is one of the introductory EECS classes that you'll take as an EECS major. And I was involved in staff last semester. I hope to be back at some point soon. And yeah, I also really like E130, but I guess we might talk about that later regarding favorite classes. So yeah.
Thank you. Last but not least, Ashwin.
Hi everyone, I'm Ashwin. I'm a sophomore, also an EECS major. In HKN, I'm on the professional development committee. So we do things like organizing resume workshops, interview workshops, as well as just resume critique. So you send in your resume, and we can give you tips on how to make it better. Outside of HKN, I'm also a lab assistant for one of the introductory EE courses. And I'm also part of Neurotech at Berkeley, which is a pretty cool club that works on building devices that can actually interface with our brain. So if you know anything about like Elon Musk and Neuralink, this is sort of the space that we are into. Yeah, excited to talk to all of you today.
Yeah, so as you can see, we have some really cool panelists here from different backgrounds. So if you're interested in like CS or EE or any related fields within that, we have people who can answer all of your questions. So before we open up our Slido for any anonymous questions, which should come in the chat soon, the first question that I think is like the burning question on everyone's mind is why Berkeley and why EECS specifically? out of all the majors that Berkeley has. So you can, anyone can choose to answer. Yeah, just go unmute and go ahead when you're ready.
I can start us off with like why Berkeley. I think Berkeley is just a really great location. I think being in the Bay Area, if you're interested in technology, there's a lot of companies here. And I think being in this environment really helps you see kind of like the budding technology world. And also it's really great that all these companies can come to Cal pretty frequently to talk to you about what they do and what opportunities they have. And I think Berkeley is also like a great location because it's like close to a city. So if you're ever bored, you can go to San Francisco, you can go to Oakland. And if you're like a nature person like me, there's also a lot of hiking opportunities around here.
I might say something for why EECS, because I actually came in as I was planning on doing civil engineering. And then what happened is I wound up taking 61A, which is like the intro computer science class, just to kind of test it out and like test the waters. And it was one of the best classes I've ever taken in my life. I loved it so much that I like declared by the end of that semester. And I think it was really just like a testament to what Berkeley has to offer you, the like, you know, professors, the coursework. It's really unmatched, and I think that you'll find that out pretty quickly.
To kind of piggyback on what Ryan said, I came in as EECS, but I thought one of the best things about the major is just like how much freedom you get. Like I didn't want to be just a CS major because I thought electrical engineering was also super cool. And I think the major really allows you to kind of pick where between those two you want to do. And sometimes some semesters I decide, oh, I want to take a couple more EE courses. And then some semesters I go, oh, I'm just going to do all CS. And I think that freedom is awesome.
Any other thoughts on why Berkeley or why EECS? I think personally for me, part of EE and CS was because I'm interested in a lot of different fields. So EECS kind of allows you to combine all of those in one place because computational aspects can be applied to pretty much anything. So that's something also that I think was really cool. Yeah, but like I'm sure everyone here has a story of why they came to Berkeley, but we do want to get to all the other questions also. So if anyone has any thoughts to add, you can add them to the chat. And Charlene has our next question for the panelists.
Yep. All right. So we've heard Berkeley classes are hard. You know, we just dispelled a bunch of those competitiveness myths, but they're still kind of difficult. So what are your best tips for succeeding academically, and what resources have helped you through that?
I can start. So this is about resources to succeed academically. So in the summer, before coming to Berkeley, I joined the Berkeley Preengineering program, which is a 3 program in the summer, and it's for incoming freshmen to the College of Engineering. And what it does is it kind of exposes you to Berkeley's curriculum, because it's like really rigorous. And so it kind of prepares you for that, and also teaches you career skills like networking and like how to interview. And it helped me a lot in kind of developing study skills kind of before I got to Berkeley, because studying in college is a lot different from high school. Like you kind of really have to like motivate yourself to like do the work. Like no one's really going to be like looking at you at your back and be like, oh, did you do all your assignments? Like it's on you to like kind of put that effort. So it really taught me those skills and how to like study with other people effectively. And I found that it was a really great program for me.
I'm gonna say that there's organizations like CSM, which is Computer Science Mentors, that offer some really great like extra practice and also like some interaction with your peers that you might want to sign up for a section for like one of the laureate classes you're taking. So for example, when I took CS61A, even though I had experience in programming before, I wasn't completely new to it, I still found, and a lot of people will find, that the problems in exams are really tricky and they're definitely not straightforward. So it really helps to have some extra practice every week. So you can sign up for a section where essentially you'll have a student, your mentor, going over practice problems and really walking you through how to solve these difficult problems. And I found that that really helped me. And also, you're also in a group of your fellow students as well, so you can discuss with them too, instead of just practicing problems on your own or something like that. So I found that that was really helpful.
Anyone else want to talk about a little bit more about the resources that they've used? If not, totally okay. You can go to the next question.
Yeah, I can jump in a little bit. I think some resources that people might forget about or ignore are actually the ones provided by course staff. So like Ashley mentioned earlier, when you come to college, people aren't always going to be checking in on you to see if you do your assignments or if you understand everything. So it's really up to you to take the initiative to go seek help when you need it. And that's totally okay. So like CSM is a great resource for people, but there's also like office hours, homework parties, review sessions led by course staff. And I think those are really great opportunities for you as well. And some courses, they even hold like one-on-one sessions with TAs occasionally, like after a midterm or during different points of the school year. And I think that's a really great opportunity for you to talk to upperclassmen to see like how you're doing the class and how you can improve and make sure you're studying in a way that works for you.
And on top of that, different student orgs also offer tutoring hours for several classes. For example, I know HKN does, so we have tutoring hours throughout the week. And so I think in case like you don't have tutoring hours from like 9 to 10 p.m. or you have a question and like office hours are full, you can always come to a different org's tutoring hours. And they're usually staffed by people who have taken the class before, who might even be on course staff or who have taught it before and are just willing to help you whenever you need it. So next question we have is, how have you been able to explore your interests outside of EECS? So I know a lot of you are in clubs doing something outside of EECS, but I guess more specifically, like what other, like have you taken classes outside of EECS and what have been interesting things that you learned in those?
I can talk a little bit about this because I came into Berkeley with an interest in econ. And what Berkeley does is if you are an EECS major, you're required to take a small subset of courses that are, not engineering related whatsoever. They're humanities courses. You have to take like an English one and then a couple lower divs and a couple upper divs. And there's kind of two ways that you could go about this. You could either, get those done as quickly as possible and then just, move on with your life. But I really don't think that's the way to do it. You should look for classes that you want to take. You should look for interesting things that you want to explore, because maybe it could lead to something more. It could lead to a minor, even a double major, or just experience that you'll have later in your life. So do take advantage of those classes. They're built into your schedule so that you don't need to feel pressured to take classes outside of your major requirements.
I want to take the time to plug design innovation courses. So Berkeley has this space called the Jacob. There's a building in Berkeley called Jacobs Hall, and it has this huge maker space. Like there's all sorts of tools and stuff. Like you can just like go and do anything there. They have like laser cutters and 3D printers, and you can purchase a pass and you can like build whatever you want there. Well, almost, be reasonable, but like you can like build things there, and they also offer classes where you can learn how to like prototype things and like design and fabricate. And there's just like so many cool classes, and like you can go and use their machines and like build whatever you want. So it's super cool. Would highly recommend checking out those courses. They're listed as design innovation courses. Would recommend.
Also, I think just the EECS major and the CS major just offer a lot of freedom in terms of how many terms it takes to complete the major. So you definitely have a lot of time to like pursue certificates in like design innovation, also in like entrepreneurship, Like for example, or just take a different minor in something that you're interested in. Like I have friends who have minors in like Asian studies, and like I think Sean's doing something in public policy. So really, you can do anything with your time here, and that's a really cool part because everything is accessible to you. Any other thoughts on cool classes or clubs you joined outside of CS? Like, does everyone just do CS clubs at Berkeley, or have you been able to pursue other interests? Like, I know people join dance clubs and music clubs, stuff like that. I was wondering if anyone wanted to talk about those experiences.
I'm also an officer on ESC, which is the student government body for the College of Engineering. And I mean, so, that's engineering related in a sense, but I don't do engineering related work there. The work I do is, advocacy and outreach, and we're working on all these initiatives for the student body. So it's a great opportunity to learn, more people skills, leadership skills, stuff like that. And there's lots of other opportunities along that front.
All right, yeah. Before I go to the next question, I'll also kind of add on my experience. So I'm very into like EECS and social good. And yeah, Stephen just mentioned in the chat, their public policy department, one of the best in the world. So I'm doing a minor in public policy because I'm interested in using like computer science for politics and computer science for like social wellness. And I think like I've joined a few clubs that actually intersect CS and social good, and I'm also planning on joining some clubs that just do like policy readings, or like keep up to date on what's going on in the social justice realm. And so, like everyone else has said, even for someone who, you may not think, oh, like computer science and social justice, they don't really go together, but they actually do. And there's a lot of intersection there too. So really anything you might be interested in, there's probably some way you can intersect EECS and that, whatever it may be. But yeah, so moving on to the next question for everyone, how was the transition from high school to EECS or from community college to EECS?
Yeah, I can go here. So one thing I noticed definitely in college that's different from high school is that in high school, you do have electives, but for the most part, you're kind of limited to taking like, one science class, one math class, one English class, etc. In college, you'll have a lot more freedom with the types of classes you want to take. And I would just encourage you to not try and plan every of your classes the same way that high school has trained you to do, because part of the college experience is sort of about just seem interesting. And even if they're not like super productive in the sense of like being directly tied to your major, like we were saying earlier, this is sort of the time to explore. It's the time to figure out what interests you rather than forcing the classes to tell you what interests you. So I would just say that use that freedom wisely and make sure you take advantage of any interests or any opportunities that come your way.
I would say that you might, yeah, along the same lines, like looking at your major requirements or something like that, you might notice that you have to take a reading and writing class, an American culture class, humanities classes, etc. Right? And you might feel that you need to get a head start on that on your first semester, but I would recommend just taking like the minimum number of units your first semester, especially because this is the time that like you're gonna have to adjust to a completely new environment, new like way of going about school than what you're used to, probably if you're coming from high school, especially. And the way that classes are graded as well, like you might get lower grades than you expected to, but still end up doing well overall at the end of the semester. So I guess you got to readjust your expectations. But overall, what I'm trying to say is that make sure you are, just taking an appropriate load of courses so that you can explore those other things, because there will always be time to fulfill all your requirements. And as we said earlier, EECS and CS are pretty doable in the amount of time that you get here at Berkeley. So, and you can even finish early potentially if you really wanted to. So that means that there's definitely enough time to do all those requirements later on. And instead, just try to look at all the various clubs that are there. Just enjoy life at Berkeley, just hang out with people. That's what I would say.
Yeah, that's true. I think there's so many cool classes at Berkeley that, at least for me, my first semester, I overloaded on classes. And I think trying to focus on too many things can be bad in terms of you don't get to spend enough time on each and everything to explore as thoroughly as you might want to. So definitely +1 on the maybe don't take too many units your first semester. Yeah. Okay, so kind of continuing on from there, what was your favorite class at Berkeley and why? Like either an EECS class or just a general like other interest class. Like Ashley, I feel like you'll say something with design innovation, but
Yeah, I will. So I took Design Innovation 21, which is about visual communication sketching, which is super cool. Like they teach you how to draw these like really nice diagrams. I learned how to draw a toaster and a drone, and it was super fun. And I also learned how to like make a really nice looking slide deck and how to like edit like a pitch video. And I loved it so much. It's super cool. On the EECS side of things, I really liked CS 161, which is on computer security, because I just think it's really cool. It's like, okay, you have a program that works, but then what if someone tries to break it? Like what happens? And so if you like breaking things and also not getting in trouble, you should take 161.
Alex, do you want to go next?
Yeah, did you see my mouth kind of like,
Yeah.
I really have to plug EECS 127, which is the optimization class. I think it was like one of the coolest classes I'd ever taken. There's like, I think there was 2 classes I really liked in CS and EECS, and the first one was 170, which was like the algorithms class. It's like the top algorithms class that you do. And then next was 127, and I thought both of those together were kind of like blew my mind. I don't know. I think a lot of people don't like it, but I think it's wrong because I think it's the coolest class ever. So. Oh, I forgot to say it's optimization, like optimization. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but it's very cool. I recommend it.
I mentioned it earlier, so I'm just going to talk about it. EE 130 was my favorite class so far. And essentially what it talks about is like, how does a transistor or like a diode, like those little circuit components that are like on a chip, how does it actually work inside? And like, how do, like you go down to like the electron level, which I thought was really cool. And if you like your science classes that you've taken, especially physics or chemistry, then this class is going to be really interesting for you. Yeah.
I can go next. In freshman year, first semester, I took a class, Engineering 185. It's called The Art of STEM Communication. So this class was all about, like us as engineers, we have a responsibility to translate that into like a medium that the rest of the world can understand. And that goes beyond just technical writing, right? Like writing research papers is one thing, but writing articles and giving presentations that are really meant to communicate with the rest of the world is super important. So this class was about, like our project was literally to go out and talk to professors, find out what they were researching, and then write like an article that could be published in a Berkeley newsletter, not an engineering newsletter, but just a Berkeley newsletter. And that was a really interesting experience. And I think it's a really valuable thing to learn, like communication skills while you're at college. And it was just a fun experience, kind of merging your interest in engineering and your interest in like journalism or presentations or anything like that. So highly recommend it.
I think for me, I can't really decide what my favorite class is, but it's either like Design Innovation 25, which is a class about user experience, or Sociology 121, which is about innovation entrepreneurship. And I like both of these classes because they really like look at things from a more human-centered approach. So in user experience, we learn about how like we can be more empathetic and how we can really factor in people's needs and like concerns when we're designing technology. And I think the innovation class that's actually from the sociology department is really interesting because it talks about how important like people and community are in determining whether or not a business is successful and whether or not someone can really thrive in the industry.
Cool. So in the interest of time, I'm going to kind of group these last two together. They kind of relate. Not last two, but before we get to the anonymous questions. The last ones for the generally asked questions are, one, what is a project you've enjoyed? And then two, kind of relates, but what is a memorable moment in your Berkeley experience? Preferably your most embarrassing. That would be fun. We could all laugh, but it doesn't have to be.
I can talk about memorable moment. Freshman year, there was this thing with the electrical company like PGE, which I'm sure anyone who lives in California already knew about. Power was shut down for most of Berkeley and for campus for the entire day on a Wednesday, and classes had been canceled that day. And so, it was a fun day. Like we just kind of like hung out with friends and we didn't do any work. And about like 7 p.m. that night, we got a text saying, classes will be back on tomorrow. And so we're like, okay, whatever, that's fine. And we started like, getting back to work, preparing for things. And then at like 12:30 a.m. and, everyone's up at 12:30 a.m. Everyone gets a text saying, this just in, like power will not be on tomorrow, classes are canceled. And I was living in one of the units, which is like where like most students are, and people just lost their minds. I went like out onto the hall and everyone like flew out of the rooms and we started just like running up and down the floors, just like screaming for no reason. And then everyone kind of collectively decided to just raid campus. And we just like walked into campus at, this is 12:30 in the morning, just like partying and just like having a good time. It was one of the best nights of my freshman year. And I see a couple smiling faces. I'm assuming there are a couple of y'all were also in that group that went on campus. Very good time, very, very fond memory.
What about interesting CS projects or EE projects? I know there's like robotics classes and different, lots of different CS classes at Cal that have you do projects in classes. So does anyone have a favorite that they've done that they want to talk about, or just about project culture in general, I guess? What doing projects in classes is like?
I can talk about it. So actually in CS 61B, which is like the second intro CS course that you have to take, one of our final projects was it's like those like roguelike dungeon games where it's like a 2D and it's a bunch of like rooms and the player can like walk around and like defeat enemies and pick up power-ups and explore like a procedurally generated like world. So our project was to build one of those, and it was really fun because you get to build a game, which is cool, and you also got a lot of freedom on like being creative with it. So what my project partner and I did was we built like a basic like dungeon structure, and then we added like a player, and then we added a bunch of like monsters that would like chase after the player, and then we put like power-ups that like, oh, if you touch it, then like you become invincible for like 10 steps or something. And it's really fun, especially if you like games or if you like to make games, which I like both of those things. So I like that project a lot. It's a lot of fun.
I thought one project that was super cool was in the second EE class you take. So for everyone who's an EECS major or a CS major, you have to take CS electives, but also EE electives. So you kind of get a feel for everything. So I think there's a question on Slido about being indecisive about whether to pursue EE or CS. And honestly, there's like intersections of the two also. That's why the major is EECS. And there's also, you can go really deep into either one of the fields. But there's ample opportunities to try out different things and kind of see which one's for you. And I think even at the end, like you don't have to be completely set on one or the other. That's a cool thing about Cal. Like you kind of make your own major within EECS. Like not every EECS major would have taken the same classes or have done exactly the same things. So you can really do anything. And going back, I was talking about a project that you do in EECS 16B, which is the second part of the 16 series that everyone takes. And you build this like voice controlled robot car thing. And so you can basically, it's like over the semester, you build this car and you give it voice commands to go forward and backwards and turn. And it's really cool because you know when it's that time of the year, because in Corey Hall, like all the people are running around chasing like these little wheeled things around Corey and yelling random words out. And it's just really fun. And I think it really brings people together. It's definitely there are lots of issues with breadboarding, like debugging can be a pain, but I think that was part of what made it fun because at the end you have this like cool physical thing that you can see and play with and chase around. So that was something I really enjoyed. Yeah, and I think we'll start getting to the Slido questions just because we are running out of time. But yeah, we can always continue more questions after. So one question that was asked was, is it possible to study abroad if you're an EECS major? And I guess the short answer is yes. I was going to study abroad, but then the pandemic happened, so I couldn't, but I definitely had an entire plan for it. Did anyone else have experiences studying abroad or have friends who studied abroad that you might want to mention? Or
I had a friend who he was an EECS major and he did this entrepreneurship certificate program or something, and he was in Portugal for some time. So I don't know a whole lot about that program, but if anyone is interested, you can let me know and I can connect you to that person. But basically they earned a certificate that has to do with like entrepreneurship and business, and they did it by studying abroad in Portugal. So yeah.
another question is, when would you recommend doing internships and what was the most helpful for preparing for internship interviews? I think a lot of you can answer this one. So whoever wants to get started can go ahead.
I think there's a big push for first years to try to get internships during the summer, even though it's fairly difficult because you really don't know too much at that point. I don't recommend that really. Just try to do something fun for that summer. And even I've seen people try to do internships before they get to Berkeley. Really whatever you're comfortable with, but I feel like you can't go wrong with waiting a year and then maybe starting your second year summer to try to find internships. It's just a lot of weight off your back and a lot of stress. So totally fine to push it back.
Something I wanted to add about internships is when I came to Berkeley is I like really wanted to like have to work in software engineering. It's like, okay, I really want an internship. And so when I was a freshman, I attended a bunch of career fairs. Like I talked to companies and I applied online and everything. And a lot of the times when I like talked to the recruiter and they found out that I was a freshman, they were like, okay, thanks for talking to us, but we hire juniors and seniors. And they told me nicely to like kind of go away, which you might get that a lot as a freshman, but like don't let that discourage you. I still recommend going to career fairs as a freshman because you'll learn, you kind of like learn how to talk to companies and stuff. And so I know I like messed up a lot then. And so you kind of want to mess up when it doesn't matter anyway and get that practice so that when you do become a junior or senior, when they actually want to talk to you, then you've had that practice and you're more comfortable going in and like talking with companies and things like that. So I would say like go to career fairs to get that practice and to get comfortable with it. But like you're going to be rejected and and the companies won't talk to you just because you're a freshman, and like trying to let that get you down.
All right, so we will be going to the next question here.
Oh wait, actually, I just wanted to add one thing.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of preparation for internships, I think in terms of software engineering internships, the lower division class 61B really prepares you well for taking on like the kinds of questions that companies ask in terms of like their interview rounds questions. And also I think for the EE classes, 16 and 16B have some preparation for that, but I've never personally done an EE internship, so I'm not sure. But I think our classes do really prepare you well for those. Yeah, sorry, Shalin, go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. So the next question we have is, during your time at Berkeley, were there any classes you've taken that really resonated with you? We kind of asked a question like this before, but like, I guess a class that like your experience wouldn't have felt complete without.
I can go here. So in high school, when you take physics classes, you really are just kind of honed in on the concepts, and you get to do experiments here and there, but you never really learn to design things. And if you're interested in EE at all, I would highly recommend EE 105, which is one of the introductory upper level circuit design classes. And the reason it resonated so much with me is because it really transitions from the idea of just learning circuits as like, here are these mathematical circuits that you have to solve to here are circuits you can design, and you can design really cool devices that can accomplish cool things in life. So in the introductory classes, EE 16A and 16B, you'll learn what kinds of things circuits can do. So for example, you'll build a capacitive touchscreen, something like your iPhone would use, and you'll build a small model of that. And in 105, you'll really learn sort of the basics of designing circuits. And for me, at least, it really was an inspiration to sort of say like, here's all the things you can accomplish if you really understand how to design circuits. So I'd recommend that.
Yeah, I'll just add for 105, I think it really changed my perspective on like circuit design, because like a lot of the time you learn that, okay, here's the details of how it actually works and how it perfectly, ideally, mathematically is described. But we're going to make this approximation because what we really care about is how much we're amplifying a signal or something like that, and not all the nitty gritty details about physics. So it's like more like teaching you to like go behind the engineering goals, like the overall goals, instead of just getting caught up in the details. I thought that like mindset was really cool.
I think to offer a different perspective, a class that I think was really important for me was an AC class I took my first semester, which is called Race, Stigma, and Prejudice. And I think it's really important that like at Berkeley, there's such a diverse group of people who really care about the community. So being able to take that class really helped me open my own perspective. And I think it was really shocking and surprising to be able to like read research papers about some of the like unconscious biases people have and how that's like kind of passed along through different behavior and even through media.
Okay, so we're running out of time a little, so we'll end with like a fun question. But what are some ways you de-stress? And also like what are like we've heard like Berkeley has some cool food places. Like what are your favorite restaurants?
One of my favorite experiences when I was in person in Berkeley was showing up to club meetings for songwriting at Berkeley. If you if you have any sort of musical experience, even if it's just strumming a few chords on a guitar or just singing, you know. Oh, one thing that we did there in meetings that was really cool is we have like a circle. We'd form a circle. We just essentially jam. So how it works is one person starts playing a song or like a chord progression, then we go around the circle soloing over it, or if you're a vocalist, singing over it. We just went around doing that for like the whole meeting, and that was really cool because you don't have to we're not trying to like perform a song that we've actually written out. We're just chilling and having fun. So, and also like at clubs like that, there's like no commitment. You can show up whenever you want to. So yeah, I recommend checking out a fun club like that.
Something fun I like to do is to play Jugger. So this was back in person, but what Jugger is it's a ball game. It's kind of like rugby, except only one person on each team can have the ball, and everyone else has foam swords and other foam weapons. And like if you get tapped by a foam weapon, you have to go down for 5 seconds. Really fun.
Wow. Okay, the thing is, it's 3 p.m., so we're technically at the end of our session, but we'll stick around for more questions if you have them and to continue answering some of the questions in chat. Panelists, thank you so much for being here and for spending your time with us to answer some burning questions about what being a student at Berkeley is like. We really appreciate all of you. Yeah, feel free to leave if you have to, but we'd love if you'd stick around also. And thanks to all of our audience for your wonderful questions and hanging out with us as we talk about our lives at Berkeley. So yeah, we'll stick around if you have more questions. And you can feel free to email us at serve@hcan.eeks.berkeley.edu if you have any more additional questions, or DM one of the panelists if you want to ask them more specific questions. Yeah, so Ashley put her email in chat in case you want that. Yeah, thank you everyone.